So over to the left-hand side of the screen, you have your menu options. We would have also placed the frequently used buttons across the top for you. And once you log into the system, it gives you this dashboard that allows you to see what's happening today in your clinic. You get to see all the birthdays that are being celebrated today as well as tomorrow. You get to see how many appointments, the walk-ins, the canceled, rescheduled, as well as your missed appointments. And this information gets updated as you go throughout the day. You have your search that allows you to now search for patients. So basically their name, their telephone number, their email address, and you once you start typing, it will automatically bring up any patient with those particular characteristics that you can access their file. You have your entire patient list that shows you all of the patients that are in the system, and you can easily edit their information, access their EHR, or go straight to the appointment book. You have your add file button that allows you to create your new patient files. And as mentioned, you are able to record the patient's weight and their height now. And this allows you to be able, if you want to do the posture evaluations, that this information allows you to be able to record that information through Biotonics, which is one of the integrations that we have in place with the Platinum 2.0. There's also your last view patients that allows you to be able to see the last set of patients that you would have accessed. Over to the right of the screen at the top, you do have your privacy button here that allows you, once your computer is set up as a public computer, that if the patient is going to be checking in, they will be able to swipe their card, use the PIN. There's also the option for them to check in through the patient app, which is called Everest Health, and it does have geo tracking. So based on their proximity to the clinic, they will be able to check in on their phone. And you can
Nice.
also do the manual arrival, which is just to click on the patient's name and check them into the clinic. Now, with
That's
that,
really a nice thing, a nice feature for HIPAA compliance too. If
yes,
you're able to make a blank screen between patients when they're called back to the. I love that.
correct.
Go ahead.
Mhm. All right. So this part is the conversation list, which would be the communication between yourself and the patient. So this will be like your text messages. So you will be
Hmm.
able to start new conversations. You can basically type the patient name here, and you can start a conversation with the patient. So of course, once the patient has a number, then you will be able to communicate with them. You can see any rolling conversations between yourself and the patient as well. So you can click on
Hmm.
any of the messages here and be able to see the entire conversation there. It also gives you your notification bell, which gives you the notifications that you might have set for patients, a little reminder that you want to have when the patient comes to the clinic, where you can have it set to the EHR, you can have it for the front desk, or you can have it for both. And then it
Nice.
also gives you alerts. So these alerts will be more stop manager related, things that you might need to do before the patient actually leaves the clinic. They will show under the caution sign. And for any of the alerts here, once there's a new message or a new alert or notification, it will automatically show here with your alert notification option.
Mhm.
All right. We have
Yeah.
made some changes for the rooms. So the rooms is I want to say it's like a two-part system there where you have the rooms, and on the rooms you will be able to see, who might be checked in. One of the changes that we have made there is that if you have an office where there is one room, but it might have multiple tables, you can now set a room capacity. So as I have here, I have 5 tables, but it's only one room. So as a patient checks in, it will show 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, and continue like that until the room is completely locked. You're also able to see the names of those patients that are actually checked in to each of those rooms as well. All
So if
right.
you had like a family room where the whole family gets all checked in there or something like that.
Yeah, you can do a family room like that, or as I said, if it is just one room with multiple tables, then you can have it set that way as well.
Very nice.
All right. Now, this, as I said, it's a two-part because you have the rooms, but you also have what we call the patient journey, which replaces the Z list. So with the patient journey, you now get to see everything on one screen. So you get to see any patients that are in the admin queue, meaning that the admin might need to discuss something with them, maybe insurance, maybe care plan, financials, whatever. They can go straight under the administrative queue. And then this also ties in with the calling module, where the calling module will call the patient back to the table once the table is available. Or if you don't use the calling module, we do have a drag and drop in place. So you can literally drag them from being in the waiting room and put them into one of the rooms. So this is if you don't use the calling module. If the calling module is used, it will automatically take the patient back. So there's a drag and drop, as you can see here. gives you an
Yeah.
entire area that if the patient is actually missed on this particular day, they will show up in that missed appointment queue. And once the patient has been seen in the clinic, then you are able to have the patient be in that check out option, which would be all of the patients that you would have actually seen for the day. Now, this
So when they
gives you,
scan their card or they check in, it puts
mhm,
them in the hold, in
uh-huh,
the waiting,
in the
and
waiting.
then boom, when they're called back to the room and they scan the room, they're in the room. And then
Mhm.
when the doctor hits the space bar, does it
Right.
clears
So
it automatically to
correct.
check them.
So
I
no more
love
space
this
bar.
feature of Platinum. I love it. I
Yeah, so
love
there's
this
no
and
more
I love the call
space bar.
module.
Got it. So, but there's no more space bar. There are actually buttons because now remember, it is not just tied to a computer. You're able to
Yeah.
use this on your iPad and your tablet. I've even used it on my phone a bit as well. So you are able to have those touch screen capabilities, but you also get the ability to have it as a full view that if you wanted to see, a little bit more information, like the patient's insurance or how long they've been in the clinic, any notifications and alerts that are attached to them, you also get to see a full view of the patient's information here as well.
Mhm. Okay. That's
All right.
fantastic.
All right, perfect. So let us get into it. And you'll notice that under the patient tab now, we basically put everything that is patient related all in one section for you, but just under different tabs. So before you would have had to add some information on the patient side, and then you would have had to go to the EHR to add the information. Now we basically made it as streamlined as possible that if you're just on the front desk screen here, you'll be able to see information that the doctor does on their end as far as the treatment, as far as the notes, etc. You will be able to see that all here. So at the very top of the screen, you do have some headers, so you can see the patient information, their balances, you can see their visits, their treatment plan details, as well as their financial plans. And then once we get into the meat of the matter, which is the patient file, you'll see we have replaced those colored boxes that you would have had either in the EHR on the front desk, so just those little squares. We've replaced them with what we call patient tags. So now instead of you just having colors with no meaning, you actually get to give those particular tags meaning. So if you wanted to tag patients that are VIP, tag patients that are wheelchair, tag patients that might be pregnant, whatever the tags are, you are able to go into the settings, create those tags, and then you will be able to attach them to the patient's file. They will be viewed still here once you're on the patient, and also on the EHR side, you will be able to see those tags as well. Now, one of the things you can still do is run reports based on those tags. So we've made it a little bit more streamlined and easier. Instead of just boxes and blocks of color, you actually get to put meaning behind those particular tags. All right. You have your metrics information that allows you to see all of the visit metrics for the patient. So you now get to see how many times a patient might have rescheduled. So before in the legacy, you didn't get to see how many times a patient might have rescheduled. You now get to see how many times they canceled appointments, how many times they walked in, how many times they missed. So you get a little bit more data as far as their metrics, and then it gives you their insight into the financial plan and treatment plan information. So you're able to see that information right here. The
Yeah.
patient information, as you can see, you can add the patient's image and it will display. You have all of their demographic information, just as you would have on the legacy system, inclusive of the patient's weight and height. And if they're female, if the
And you
patient
were
is
saying you can use the
pregnant,
weight and height and what other features?
yeah, the weight and height. And can be used for the posture evaluation. So I'll show you that once we get into the EHR,
Okay.
where you will be able to do evals and it basically requests the patient's weight and height. So once it's entered here, then you wouldn't have to enter it once you're going to do the posture eval. All right. Entering the patient's address, super easy to do now because this is tied to a global database. So once you start typing the patient's address, you basically just choose the address and it will automatically populate with their postal, their city, their state. So that information
Hmm.
gets populated for you. You're able to enter their communication information, their communication preference, whether they prefer to receive text, phone, or email. So that information can be entered. You can now record the patient's employer. You can put in emergency contacts. We've also given you the liberty to create your own custom fields in the system. So if there's information that you want to track, but the system doesn't necessarily say, here, this is a space that you can do XYZ, you get to create your own. So what you're seeing here is not necessarily what you're going to see when you have your own system. These are things that you will be able to create and then be able to track it and again, run reports based on this information as well.
Okay.
All right. Patient
Nice.
card on file. We're going to be integrating with Mondial Pay, and Mondial Pay is our own credit card setup that allows you to do your one-time payments or your recurring payments. So you will have that ability there. You can also now see latest activities. So you get to see, who might have added a new treatment plan, who might have created a new financial plan. So no need to have to call Platinum and say, hey, someone did something and I don't know who it is. Now you can go to the patient's file and you can actually see that information right here.
Okay.
All right. Now I'm not done with the patient profile, just a little bit more. Over to the right-hand side of the screen. As you can see here, there are particular settings. So you can now easily change the patient's status. You can set that you want to allow for them to receive online bookings as well as online payments as well. If, let's say, a patient comes in and every time they come in, they need to get a decompression, then you can set up a default appointment code so that at the time of booking, this is the code that the system will always assume. Even if at the time of booking you want to change it, you will be able to do it, but it gives you the ability to set the code, and you can also set a default duration for that code as well. So you might have a patient, your standard appointment, it usually takes 15, but this patient has some mobility challenges, so they find it difficult to get on or off the table. So you just want to extend the time just for this patient without affecting everyone else. You're able to choose the duration for the patient there as well. So default appointment code and the duration. You can also now record the patient's referral sources as well as the patient's. In the legacy, you could only do either referral source like Facebook or a website the patient. But now you can actually record them both. If you want, you can also track the patient's hobbies if it's going to be important to how the doctors are going to treat the patient. So if they like hiking like me, like I go hiking every Sunday now. So if they like hiking and you know that they're getting these injuries basically because that they're hiking, just having access to their hobbies might be able to tell you how you are going to plan this patient's course of care. So you are able to record that. And then you can also put your patients in groups for the families. So you easily just type the patient's name here and you can easily add them to be a part of the group.
And what are the groups come in handy to help with when they're scanning in to the
Checking
call?
in,
Yeah.
appointment book. So when you're doing the appointment, I haven't gotten here as yet, but since you asked, once we go to the appointment book and you want to book an appointment for a patient that is a part of a group, it automatically asks you if you want to also schedule the appointment for these members of the family as well. Same thing for check-in and being called back to a room.
Okay, fantastic.
All right. All right. So once we go through the patient's profile, the next thing would be the patient's insurance. Same thing. Once you're on the patient's insurance, it gives you the ability that you can create all of their different sets and their policies, whether it's a primary or secondary, etc. Once you have the patient's insurance already created, you're able to record all of their information, a member ID, their subscriber information. You enter all the information as it relates to their insurance. One of the things that we have added here for you is the ability to now put the patient's card right there in the insurance section. So you can now
Okay,
take a picture of their front and back of the card, and you can upload it here and save it to the policy, and it will remain
brilliant.
there so that if you need to refer to it, you have that information there as well. There's also the benefits tab. And the benefits we integrate directly with Waystar. Waystar is the clearinghouse that we are going to be using for claim submissions as well as remittances. So with
Hmm.
that, there's an add-on feature that allows you to be able to check for online benefit verification. So we know a lot of offices right now they have to go on the clearinghouse, check the patient's benefits, and then make a note of it in the Platinum system. Once you do this, once you click on this button, it will automatically populate with what their deductible is, what their copay is, what their coverage limits and visit limits are. And if the patient's policy is broken down where they're going to be covered for massage or DME or eval management, it again will populate all of that information there for you. And if you
Wow.
don't want to do that add-on because it is an add-on, then it gives you the ability that you can edit and you can input this information manually as well.
Okay,
All right.
nice.
All right. So there's also authorizations that you can do. There's the patient's fee schedule where you can go in and you can put in the approved amount for each service. If it differs, there's the claim detail where you can record, their date of current or their initial treatment, their acute manifestation date. So all that information can be entered. And if it is a PI, that you can also now attach the attorney information there as well.
Fantastic.
Right? Treatment plans, kind of new. Before, you could do like a recommendation of how often the patient comes in,
Yeah.
but you weren't able to necessarily say, okay, this is what I recommend for the patient, and I'm going to do 2 times a week for 3 weeks, etc. Now you have the ability to do that. Now, with the Platinum 2.0, whenever you create a new patient file in the system, it automatically adds a treatment plan, and you can add additional treatment plans as needed. So, for example, if the patient was initially coming in for their wellness, but now they got
Mm.
involved in an auto accident, so their diagnosis codes are going to change, then you can create separate treatment plans for each time that anything on the patient's treatment is going to be changing. So just to show you some of the details there, you still have the claim and case information, same thing from the insurance side. You have the patient's complaints, which you can record. Remember, you would have had to do this directly in the EHR. Now it
Yeah.
can be recorded and viewed right here in the patient's file. So you get to
Mm.
still add all of their major complaints. You also now get the ability to add goals. So maybe their goal is to play football with their kids again. You can actually record those goals and have them saved. And this
Okay.
information is saved here, and it will also show in the EHR screen as well. All
And can
right.
you also enter this from the HR screen if the doctor wants to put
Yes.
something in?
Yes, you can.
Good.
All right. So from both pages, you can actually do it. You have custom notes, which, as I said, you will be able to go in and create your custom fields so that when you have the custom fields and they're showing on the patient's file, then you can record the information as it relates to this particular patient that you're on.
Okay.
You have your phases and diagnosis, which, as mentioned, you will be able to go in and create all of the different diagnosis codes that you're going to be using. One of the major
Mm.
changes that we have made here is that you are able to have like a chart list, meaning that these are the ones that you use on a consistent basis. But what we've also done, and I know that this is a game changer for a lot of offices, you no longer have to go in and hide codes that you no longer want. There's an entire master list with well over 70,000 codes in there that once you start
Wow.
typing the code, it allows you to be able to attach it to the patient's file. All right, so you can attach it directly there from the page from the master list, or you can just choose one that's already there and have it added, whichever is easier. All right.
Do you have a max list on that? Can you only do 5 or 10, or can you do 40 or whatever? How
I
does that work?
have added, I don't know, I've gone past the amount that you could actually add. I don't recall there being a limit. I think for insurance, I think that they were saying that you could only send like 12 diagnosis codes for a patient, but I haven't actually tried to see what the limit actually is for diagnosis.
Mm. And that's why I like doctors to do initial reports for the PI patients because we want to send in 30 or 40
40 codes. Yeah,
because there's just
yeah.
not enough room for that in a typical software. But that's great.
Got it. But one of the things that I like here, and this is something that you did not have in the system before, is that if you've chosen a particular code, the system will say, hey, you've already have this code added, so you can't add it again. So that is one of the things that you can do. It also gives you filters that if you don't know the particular code that you're looking for, but you know which area it might fall under, like if you're looking for something that is mycosis, then once you use the
Mhm.
filter, then your list here will only be filtered down to
That's
those
very cool.
particular codes. So you have all of these different options now in the system.
Nice.
All right. Again, with the phases of care, before you could have done, just the patient's appointments and set them accordingly. Now you get to set up the phase where you can say, okay, this patient is coming in for maintenance, so there's not necessarily a particular frequency. They just come as they like. Or you can set up a frequency where it can go from 1 time a week to 5 times, or you can do once a month, or you can do every 2 weeks. So once you've chosen your particular frequency, the system then asks, how long is this going to continue? Once you do that,
Okay.
the system automatically calculates the total number of visits that are there. And you can also attach the particular diagnosis code, sorry, the CPT codes that you
Mhm.
want to have billed during this particular phase of care as well. So you
Yeah,
can
you had that
also,
before. That's awesome. You
good.
still have the map part. I loved how we could map out the 3 times a week for
Uh-huh.
a couple months, and then
Mhm.
some are re-exams, some are re-X-rays that you're able to do that.
Correct. So you can do that. And then, as I said, with each phase, these will be the services that get billed. So remember in that services 1 to 6, where you would go in, and then if
Nice.
the patient gets a re-exam, you had to either do like a stop manager and switch the code. No longer will
Hmm.
you necessarily have to do that, because once you've entered that this is the first phase of care and these are the services that are supposed to be received, when the patient then goes on to the second phase of care, the system will automatically switch to that second phase without you having to do anything. So once they've reached their 36 visits, phase, the system then moves on to phase two. And then the next set of services for the CPT codes here is what will be billed for the patient's next phase of care.
Which is brilliant. But if on their re-exam they're not ready to move on and you need to do another couple weeks of the first phase, how
Mhm.
hard is that to change?
Right, you will basically be able to go in and add another phase. So you could actually select that this phase is actually closed, and you would then be able to go in and do another phase of care and close off the one that would have started
Okay.
automatically.
Very
Mhm.
cool.
All right.
You guys think of everything.
Well, we need to. We've taken this long, so we need to make sure that we've covered all of our bases.
Yeah.
All right. So that covers the phases and diagnosis. As I said, you have the regular treatment and spinal as well. This information, of course, is entered in the EHR site. So you are able to view it here, but it is entered there on the EHR. But here's the kicker, the fact that you now have the ability where you can either do a single note, which is technically what you guys have been doing in the Platinum system all along, where you're just using like S for subjective just as titles to separate it. So now if you do it that way, it is fine where you can still have it done. Or you can actually do the SOAP, which would mean you don't have to click on a button that says subjective, click on a button that says objective, and so on. So everything could actually be a little bit more streamlined and you can have it separated in its particular section. You also have the spinal list in here. Again, major changes being done here. Before you had to manually type out, what you might have done. We have given you settings that you can go in and you can create all of the possible listings that you're going to put on patient's file along with the different colors. So if you were using colors before, or if you want to use colors now, I should say, to represent, red is for fusions and green might be an
Yeah.
area that you're adjusting. And maybe you might want to use a purple, meaning that it's a little touch and go. You can probably
Mhm.
adjust it, but not the way that you would normally. You will be able to create the colors, the listings, and everything. We've also made it a little bit easier for you as well. That if you, let's say, are treating a particular area and you found that you also found that same listing on other areas as well in terms of nearby areas, you can do the fusions. And once you select confirm, it adds that exact same listing to all of those particular vertebrae as well automatically. So again, reducing you from having to manually do it on each area individually.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right. So we have the financial plans for you as well. So the financial plans, of course, the agreement between yourself and the patient for a set amount for a set number of visits. We've given you a whole lot in this because we have given you the ability to create templates. So you did not have that option before, where if you have patients that are going to be coming in for 32 visits and they're going to be charged $5,000, you did not have the ability. You had to go in manually and create a financial plan for every patient. So here, you still have to individually do it, but you don't have to put in all of that information repeatedly. You just choose a template, and whatever information is in that template will automatically apply to that patient. If all your patients can't fit into one box and you're going to do it individually, of course, it gives you the ability that you can create individual financial plans. You can also do family plans. This is something we definitely did not have before. So if you have a patient that is a part of a family and you go in and you say, okay, I want to have it as this, and I'm going to select these particular services to be billed a part of the care plan. Once I go ahead and select create, I should have chosen a different patient. But nonetheless, once I go ahead and select create, once the patient is a part of a family, it will automatically allow me to choose who I also want to be a part of this financial
Mhm.
plan. So it's like
Very nice.
$5,000 that's going to cover 5 patients. And if one patient receives these services under them, it's going to count towards the plan. If another patient receives another 5 services, it's going to count as a part of the plan. So that is another option that we have included for you. And then there's also a membership plan as well that you can do that. Let's say you have a patient agrees that it's going to be $1,200. They're going to do 2 visits per month, so 24 visits in the year, and they're going to make $100 payment every month. Then you can set it up so that if the patient did not come in that first month, the system charges them $100. If the second time they came 6 times, still $100 until the plan has been completed.
It's nice to have that flexibility. Fantastic.
All right. Now, this is another one that we have been asked for a lot, which is under the financial plan. You mentioned about those like re-examinations and stuff. So this is another one that once you have your financial plan created and you have your services, of course, your services are set up based on the different CPT codes, whether it's going to be a manipulation, whether it's a exam or X-ray code, then there are going to be characterized here for you. So let me just show you what I mean. So if I choose a couple of the X-ray services, then those will basically fall under radiology. If I choose another couple that might fall under DME, they're all going to be separated. But here's the deal. We've set it up so that you will be able to control how many services a patient actually gets under their financial plan. So when I say that,
Okay.
let's say, as you can see, manipulations here. And if you want to set a limit for this category, so because these three services fall under the manipulations, and you say, okay, this patient is only allowed to have 18 visits, 18 of these particular services. Once the 18 has been reached, the system can still charge the patient, but it will not count as a part of the financial plan. It will just be added to the
Mhm.
patient, but not be a part of the plan. We've also gone as far as to say, okay, maybe there's a limit per CPT code. So maybe they're only allowed, like, let me use this example. They're only allowed one X-ray. So you will be able then to enter, okay, they need to get one 72050 or maybe one of the 72052. So you will be able to now set up how many of a particular service counts under a patient's financial plan. You did not have that ability before, but now you do.
Okay.
All right. And then it
Good
also
stuff.
gives you like a payment simulation as well that you once you've entered how much the patient is going to be covering. So let me just show you here. So let's say that the responsibility is 5,000. They're going to be allowed 36 visits. And once I save this and I go over to the calendar here, then it allows me to be able to say, okay, maybe the patient is going to have like 12 visits or just the one payment, sorry, then it will basically spread this $5,000 out amongst those particular payments. So I should have, maybe I can still do it. Let me see so that you can actually see what I think I saved it prematurely. But nonetheless, the calendar will basically show you like if I had entered 12 here in the number of payments, then it would basically just
Mm.
divide the $5,000 by the 12 and then show you when each date is actually
Oh,
due and the
okay.
amount that the patient has to pay. So this will be like a
Very
payment
nice.
schedule simulation.
And then that's
Right?
plugged into your card on file and you're all set.
Correct. Correct. All right. The transactions we basically kept as similar to the legacy as possible, with a different view, of course. So the colors are kept the same as far as cash transactions, services that haven't been submitted, etc. So you can still do your different filters there. Once you click on the service, you're able to see a little bit more. I do love the fact that you can actually see the diagnosis codes that were attached to a particular transaction. You can also see the chart note that was actually done on that particular day as well. So if this needed to be sent to the insurance and you needed to make sure that your note was completed, it will show you what your note actually was. So you can see this is a draft because the note never got completed by the doctor, but you will be able to see any of those attached chart notes based on the patient's care. All right, so that's the patient's transactions. Of course, you can still do your add payments, you can add refunds, product services. We've also given you like admin transactions that you guys can create as well. So your discounts, your balance adjustments, etc. Still be able to do your super bills. And of course, the patient card that is attached will also show here as well. For the patient's appointments, this will basically show you all of the patient's future appointments that are set. However, unlike the legacy, it also shows you what happened on those past appointments as well. So every
Oh,
time the patient actually came in, it shows you if it's a no-show, it actually tells you that. And the no-show actually is automatic. The system does it for you. So if you had a patient that was scheduled on the appointment book, but they did not come in, and you did not enter a reason why they miss, the system will automatically put them as a no-show. If the
okay.
patient rescheduled, as you can see here, it shows the patient rescheduled. If they
Mhm.
completed their appointment, meaning they came into the office, it shows it's completed. If they came in without an appointment, you see it shows that the patient walked in. So every single time, the system will basically take account for all of the appointments that were ever scheduled for the patient. Now, these same statuses, they will extend on the appointment book. So no longer does your appointment disappear from the schedule anymore. It will show you what happened on that particular appointment. So the patient's name remains, but it shows you the status of each appointment on the appointment book.
Okay.
All right. You have your tasks and notes section, which basically allows you to do quick notes, like little things that you might need to make note of on a patient's file. Typically, this is where your F5 note information is going to be saved. And then you also have your task section here, where you can assign particular tasks to members of your team. Like if there's something that needs to be done by a particular representative, you can enter who it needs to be done by and when it needs to be done. You enter your text, and it will automatically show there to be done by that particular person.
Fantastic.
All right.
It's like Trello built in for your patient.
Yes. Yeah, yes. The events have basically replaced the stop manager. A lot easier to set it up. Again, you have your add event option where you will be able to go in and select, okay, when does this patient needs to be stopped? As you said, you might have done that re-examination. So you might want to stop the patient at a specific visit, and then it creates the action for you, whether it's patient facing, meaning that it will generate when the patient checks into the office, or if it's going to be a notification that you get that little reminder bell actually show up there. And then you are able to create the event manager. Now, what we have done is that you do have patient specific stops, which would be this one that I'm actually selecting just for this patient. But under
Mhm.
your settings option, we've also given you the ability to create clinic stops, meaning you're setting this up for the entire clinic. So if you have a patient and you want the patient to be stopped at their 100th visit, then the system, any patient that falls on that 100th visit, you will be able to get an automatic notification for. So this would be to set up for the entire clinic, whereas the one on the patient's file allows you to be able to set it up just for that one patient. All
That's really
right.
cool. And that's where you would set up like the 12 visit re-exams if you needed
Correct.
to.
If it once it's going to apply to all patients, then you will be able to set it up there. If it is going to vary patient by patient, then it is best to set it up directly under the patient's file. But as
Can you
long as
set up
it's,
for patient type, like a PI patient versus an insurance patient or cash or whatever?
I think it gives you the ability to set up a particular code. Let me just double check. Where are my settings? And then group parameters, event manager. So once you're here, there are tons more different events that you can create as compared to the patient. So I think I remember seeing something about a particular code. I'm wondering if maybe it
I
was
don't want to slow
on
you down. I just,
the
oh, really?
patient. Yeah, so specific appointment codes triggered. So you will be
Okay,
able to
perfect.
base it on particular appointment codes there as well.
Yeah, nice. That is awesome.
All right. You also have your documents where the documents now you can easily do a drag and drop. So if your File
Oh,
Explorer is open, you can drag and drop, separate it into medical, personal, as well as posture screen documents.
wonderful.
I know that we are integrated with Posture Ray. So if you're using
Posture,
Posture
yes.
Ray, you will be able to go ahead and have this set up so that once you've done those what's the word I'm looking for? It's not exams, but nonetheless, once you've used it directly on Posture, you will be able to see them directly here under the documents, or they will show under the images. So they will basically show in either section. So the images is basically similar, separated into medical, reference images, and then posture screen and Posture images, as you can see here.
Fantastic.
All right. You also have your forms and reports. I know that they're still doing a little bit of work on the forms and reports, but you will be able to have your different forms and reports here. You'll be able to attach it to a particular health plan, and you'll be able to also base it on a particular appointment as well, so that the patient will basically receive the forms and information based on a particular appointment. So if it's like a re-examination and you wanted to send particular documentation for that, then you will be able to base it on that particular appointment.
Okay.
All right. There's also the patient portal that gives you the ability to see everything that would have been sent off to the patient here as well. And then, as I mentioned, in regards to the images, same thing as the document. So drag and drop or simply click on the cloud and it would upload your image directly to the system here. So as you can see,
That's much easier to do. That's great.
these are the images on this particular patient.
Does it auto shrink if they're a large image? Does it auto shrink them to what Platinum likes so it's not slowing
Too
Platinum
big.
down because they're huge images?
Well, basically, I don't think that that's going to become an issue. It would have been slowing the platinum down because it was a server-based system, but now everything
Hmm.
is on the cloud, so it's going to be more internet related than pulling directly from the computer. So it should be pretty easy. And we also have transferred for the doctors that are onboarding right now. We've already transferred their images and everything, and I have not had a single complaint about anyone not being able to load their images in real time. Everything has been quick.
Okay.
All right. All right, so we were moving on. So as I said, that's all the patient. And as I said before, You would have gone into different sections to enter that information back and forth between the EHR and the front desk, but now everything is a bit streamlined that you can basically be either on either side and be able to enter the information for the patient.